Yeah, no, we're about to become good friends. He's going to be like, oh, no. You're going to want to talk to him.
Yeah. Yes, please. No trouble at all. Okay, happy Monday, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I'm Mr. Bartlett, B-A-R-T-L-E-T-T. Mr. Bartlett. And y'all ever heard of Bartlett pears?
Nope.
My family's kind of famous for that, actually. Bartlett pears. You ever eat a can of pears?
Yeah.
You ever see pears in the supermarket?
Nope.
Yeah.
The chances are about 100% that if you've seen pears in the supermarket, they are not Bartlett pears. Because Bartlett pears don't keep very well. You pluck them off the tree, and after about 4 days they go bad. It takes 4 days to get them to the supermarket. So what they do with Bartlett pears is they put them in cans. Next time you're in a grocery store somewhere, go to the fruit section and look at the can of pears, and it's very small print at the bottom of the can. It'll probably say, almost certainly it'll say, Bartlett pears. Oh, yeah, no. That's right.
That's our family?
Well, I don't know, I'm like 1/200th of it. I don't know exactly. It was before I came along. Yes, ma'am.
My last name's Del Monte.
Oh, is that right? Hey, you're the competition, aren't you? No, you're not the competition. You're the big corporation that buys the Bartlett pears. And let me tell you, the Bartlett family is very grateful to you. And to all of you who eat your Bartlett pears. They're healthy, they're a nutritious snack. Way better than a candy bar. It's a pleasure to be here, folks. I'm Mr. Bartlett, as I say. And today I have a little presentation to deliver to you about memoirs, which I know you've been working on, and also about Rick Bragg, who you know that we're going to engage with here shortly. But before I do, I'd like to show you something, if I may. Let's see, how do we click forward on this? Oh, yeah. Now, this is not my room. Do you guys mind if I turn the lights off? You're good with that? Too dark?
No,
That's nice, isn't it? You know, studies have been done that say if you conduct class with the lights off, as long as there's sufficient natural lighting, that it creates less anger in the classroom. I read that somewhere. It's interesting, huh? I like having the lights on. Yeah, listen, as many of you know, I'm actually an 8th grade teacher at Clanton Middle School. Now, Clanton is a small town that's about halfway between Birmingham and Montgomery, right on I-65. And that's where I teach my 8th graders. They're very much like you guys are. They're good people. They're interested in learning more about reading and writing and the English language, and I know you are as well. But I have these 3 rules. Of course, this is not my classroom, and I understand. This is not Clanton Middle School. But I thought I would give you guys a look at the kinds of things my 8th graders have to deal with. You know? Yeah, I'm a former military, and the military mindset kind of lends itself to rules. And I have 3 rules that I find work very well in the classroom. I'll just kind of show you. I have them on this placard here. I have 3 or 4 of these all around my classroom. And at the beginning of the year, I give each student a little card, about the size of a business card, with all this stuff printed on it. Isn't that nice? Yeah, first rule I have is control yourself. I ask my students to control themselves. They know what the rules are. All I ask is that they control themselves and follow them. And you'll find that if you don't control yourself, someone like me is going to control you all of your life. You've got to control yourself. And my students do. Of course, I know you guys do too, because I've sat in here for several days now. As the weeks have gone by. Great. Another rule that I tell my 8th graders, guys, cooperate with me. I'm a professional educator. I know what I'm doing. And if you'll cooperate with me, the process will be much easier for you and for me, and will be much more productive. And finally, my 3rd rule, right here on the placard, continue the march. That means don't give up. Don't quit. Don't stop. Next week, next month, next year, all that stuff will take care of itself as long as you keep working just for today. So today, I'm look forward to you and me, and I, controlling yourselves, cooperating with me, and continue the march. I thank you for your cooperation. And Banjo the dog thanks you too. That's my little dog, Banjo. Now, if you were in my 8th grade class, you would have already seen lots and lots of pictures of little Banjo. He's a long-haired Chihuahua. He weighs 6 pounds. He is the world's greatest dog. And I'll have more to say about him later. But let's begin, shall we? Sure, Mr. Bartlett, let's do it. Let's begin, shall we?
Okay.
Sure, Mr. Bartlett. Hey, yeah. Memoirs. Let me just click all of this up here. Whoops, hey now. Whoa, hey now. It's always something, isn't it? Hey Hey, Megan, how are you? That's okay. It's okay. No, that's fine. What I have here is just a transition. A little bit crazy. I can fix that. Let's see. One else quick. And I want to apply to all.
Oh. Make 8 days. 8. 1. Is it uno? No, dos. Not.
As I say, it sure is. It sure is a pleasure to be here, guys. I've been very impressed seeing your engagements with each other and with the Auburn students as we've been here talking about writing stuff. Very impressed with what I'm seeing. Tell you, it's true here and it's true in Clanton too. You guys, the best of you could compete with anybody, and all of you have the tools to be successful. You really do. So we're expecting big things out of you. Hey, no pressure.
Wow.
No pressure. Okay, good. We got our rules. Now, memoirs. Let me just click all of this up here and we'll talk about it very briefly. Okay. I know that you've talked about memoirs a good deal already. Memoirs. What is a memoir? Well, it is an account of an author's personal experience. Now, you may very well have already studied something that kind of sounds like that, biography or autobiography. But there's important differences between a memoir and biography. We'll get there in just a moment. But the word memoir comes from the Latin word memoria, which means memory. Isn't that interesting? And it makes perfect sense because a memoir is what you remember. There we go. Well, think now. A memoir is what you remember about what's happened to you and what you've done. Absolutely. How is a memoir different from an autobiography? What's an autobiography?
A story about a person by that person.
Exactly, yes. Like if I wanted to write the story of Wayne Bartlett, well, I could do that as an autobiography. I would start with when I was born, maybe some details about my mother and father, and I would talk about all the things that have happened to me up to now. Or if I was writing a biography about somebody who has already lived and died, I would include details about their death and how it happened, when it happened, all that sort of thing. That's not what a memoir is. An autobiography tends to cover an entire lifetime, from birth to death, and you can read autobiographies of famous people in any library. Some of them are really interesting and fascinating. But a memoir only covers a selected period in a person's life. An autobiography is generally thought of as part of a historical record. Facts and dates and accuracy, those kinds of things are very important when you're writing a biography of somebody, or if you're writing an autobiography about yourself. Whereas a memoir is not thought of as any kind of historical document. No, it's just the things you remember. And maybe you remember them one way. Somebody else who might have been involved remembers them a different way. That's perfectly okay. Nobody expects a memoir necessarily to be historically accurate. It's just what you remember. Yeah, sure. So that's how an autobiography is different from a memoir. You ever seen this guy, Will Rogers? He was a comedian, from about 1905 to about 1925 or so. He was very popular. Very popular. He was like, what's a funny comedian y'all know nowadays? He was that guy in 1920, exactly. I always think of Eddie Murphy or, that kind of person, right? He was a real cut-up. And he would say things, just like Eddie Murphy used to say things, that were absolutely true. And that's why we laugh, because they're true. That's part of the reason why they're funny. This is what he said about memoirs. You want to read that okay? Get it? It's kind of funny, right? Get it? A memoir is when you write down the good things that you should have done, ought to have done, and you leave out the bad things that you did. Well, isn't it true that when we think back on the past, we tend to forget the bad stuff and remember the good stuff? And I can prove that that's true. How many of you know women that have more than one child? I rest my case. You forget the bad stuff, and you remember the good stuff. We're kind of wired that way as human beings. Right? Am I right? Am I right? My mother has 2 children. She forgot how hard I was, how bad I was when I was a little kid. How difficult it was to have me around. She forgot. All right, very good. Now, Rick Bragg. Rick Bragg is a pretty famous guy. I know you've talked about him already to some degree. I want to say a few words about him now, if I may. Here's a picture of him when he was a little bit younger and a little bit thinner. He's a fine-looking young man, I suppose. He won the Pulitzer Prize, and I know we talked about that a week or 2 ago. Big, big deal. Here's a picture of him a little bit less thin. How do you say it politely? A little bit less thin?
Thick.
Okay, maybe thin, right, exactly. Yeah, but he's a very well-respected writer, and he looks like he's delivering a class there or something, talking about his writing. He does that. Yeah, he was born in Piedmont. Now, he's born in Piedmont, Alabama, and grew up in Possum Trot. Now, here we have Alabama. We have Montgomery at the bottom there, the bottom star. That's the capital, of course. And Birmingham up there, right? There's Lochapoka. Okay, kind of orient yourselves. That's where we are right now. There's Piedmont. So he wasn't all that, you know, he was born and raised not all that far from us. And Possum Trot's not right next to him. Now, I will be the first to admit I have never been to Possum Trot. If you've been there, good for you. But it's pretty small, I understand. Okay. He wrote several best-selling books about his life. He wrote this one, Prince of Frogtown.
Is he right?
Huh?
He's right.
Well, I don't think that's him. The guy with the little crown drawn over his head, that's his father, who he didn't exactly have a very good relationship with.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
because he was alcoholic.
He drank a lot and he partied a lot. He got in fights all the time. Yeah, you know, stuff like that, right? Of course, it was a long time ago. Maybe when those things weren't quite as unusual as they are today. But, yeah, he was a hard-living kind of guy. Now, that's actually him with the drink. That gentleman next to him, that's a buddy of his. And you see what they're doing. You see how they entertain themselves on Saturday. Right? Okay. This is another book he wrote about his mother's father, whom he had a great relationship with and really admired. Mother's father, what do you call that? Grandfather, of course. Maternal grandfather, exactly. But this is the one that I want to read something out to you out of, if I may. And I have it here on my flash drive. I'm going to pop my flash drive in and read it off of my little laptop right here. How did we ever do this stuff before the days of the computer? Can you imagine? You know, when I went to 8th grade, I remember distinctly. Is that good or bad? Yeah, you say that for all these people. Well, I think that I remind you of someone positive. Yeah, I remember being in Mrs. Barr's 8th grade class. I love Mrs. Barr. Her husband was the town doctor in the little tiny town I grew up in, Mr. Barr. Doctor. And she was a wonderful woman. She did not have a computer inside. Never. Well, we didn't have one of those days. I graduated high school in 1979. So what year would I have been in 8th grade? About 70. Yee, that's been a long time ago. Right? You want to know something interesting? Rick Bragg and I are just about the same age. And you know what I think of when I think of that? He's my age. He's won a Pulitzer. What am I doing? Huh? I have not won a Pulitzer Prize. I've done a lot of things, but I have not won a Pulitzer Prize.
It's on the way.
It's on the way. Thank you. That's very nice of you to say.
Well, how do you know you have one already?
Well, they would have presented it to me at a big swanky dinner if I had won one. Let me tell you. All right. I would like to read you an excerpt from this book, if I may. Okay, just a short little excerpt. And while I'm reading it, listen, and I want you to ask yourself, does the story grab? You know, does it interest you? Is it compelling? And try to think of, you know, why is it compelling to you? If it is. It may not be, but if it is, why is it compelling? Do you want to read more? And if so, how come? Here we go. This is from All Over Book Shout. This story is important only to me and a few people who lived it, people with my last name. I tell it because there should be a record of my mama's sacrifice, even if it means unleashing ghosts. Because it is one of the few ways I can think of beyond financing her new false teeth and making sure the rest of her life is without the deprivations of the past. To repay her for all the suffering and indignity she absorbed from us. For me. And I tell it because I can. because it is how I earn my paycheck, now at the New York Times, before at so many other places telling stories. It is easy to tell a stranger's story. I didn't know if I had the guts to tell it. This is no sob story. While you will read words laced with bitterness and killing anger and vicious envy, words of violence and sadness and hopefully dark humor, you will not read much whining. Not on her part, certainly, because she does not know how. I've been putting this off for 10 years because it was personal. Because dreaming backward can carry a man through some dark rooms where the walls seem lined with razor blades. I put it off, until finally something happened to scare me, to hurry me, to make me grit my teeth and read. It was death that made me hurry. It was not my father's. He died 20 years ago, tubercular. His insides pickled by whiskey and beer. Being of long memory, my mom, my brothers, and I did not go to the cemetery to sing hymns or to see him remanded to red clay. We placed no flowers on his grave. Our mama, went alone to the funeral home one night when it was just him and her. No, the death that made me finally sit down to write was that of my grandmother, my mother's mother, Ava, whom all called by her pet name Abigail, Miss Ab, who after enduring 86 years of this life and a second childhood that I truly believed would last forever, died of pneumonia 2 days before Thanksgiving, 1994. The night her grown children gathered around her bed in the small community hospital in Calhoun County, Alabama, I was in New Orleans, writing about the deaths of strangers. I was sitting in a cramped living room in a crumbling housing project, listening to a hollow-eyed and pitiful young woman tell how her little boy had been killed one morning by a stray bullet as he stood in the doorway, his book satchel in his hand like a little man going to work. She told me how the Dr. Seuss and Winnie the Pooh just fell out on the stoop, how the boy looked at her after the bullet hit, wide-eyed. And as she talked, her 2 surviving children. Hello, how are you? Please join us. How can we help you? And as she talked, her 2 surviving children rode tight circles around the couch on their bicycles because she was afraid to let them play outside in the killing ground of Project Blue. As I left, shaking her limp hand, she thanked me. I usually just nod my head politely and move on, struck anew every time by the graciousness of people in such a soul-killing time. But this time, I had to ask her, why thank me for scribbling down her hopeless story for the benefit of people who live so far and safely away from this place where the gunfire twinkles like lightning bugs after dark? She answered by pulling out a scrapbook of her baby's death, cut from the local newspaper. People remember something, she said. People forgets if it ain't real. The biggest reason for writing this story is to set one thing straight from now on. My mama believes that she failed. That her 3 sons, being all she ever had, did not get enough of the fine things in life because she was our mother. My older brother, Sam, has worked like a dog his whole life in the coal yards and clay pits when he was 11, with a pick and shovel and yard rake when he was a young man, and now retired. If he has ever had a full day of rest in his life, I cannot remember when. She blames herself. My younger brother, Mark, has known the insides of jails. He is a hard drinker and fighter who bears the long scars of knife wounds and still carries a bullet in one arm, who seems to have somehow absorbed the spirit of the father he cannot even remember. She blames herself for that. Then there is me, the newspaper man, who, through the leg up she gave him in a series of happy accidents, wound up at the temple of his profession, working under legends. I am no better, no worse than my brothers. I'm no better, no worse than my brothers. In fact, they are both smarter than me. But the truth is that I am proud of who and what I am. Just as proud of being the son of a woman who picked cotton and took in ironing as I am of working for a place like the New York Times. I've always believed that one could not have been without the other. My job has carried me to see things seldom seen by a country boy without a white trash, first pick draft notice to the other side of the world and into the same columned mansions where my mama used to clean bathrooms. When I was a man of 33, they even let me into Harvard, and I was not holding on. When I was 36, I won the highest honor our profession bestows. I hope she blames herself for that. Ooh, what do you think? Wow, compelling? Interesting? Does it grab you?
Yeah.
Want to read more? Yeah, well, that's good. That's what Rick Bragg's hoping for. And I know that he feels strongly about telling these stories. And you know, if I was going to write something like that about my family, I don't know. I'd be kind of, what if it becomes a bestseller and everybody in the world reads it? Everybody's going to know my secrets, aren't they? It takes a certain amount of risk to talk about these painful things. It does take guts, doesn't it, to tell your own story. And yet Rick Bragg has done it. So we should understand that and respect it when we speak. Pretty powerful. Okay, great. What makes this powerful? Well, let's have a look at a little something here. First of all, it's about more than just me. It's about more than just Rick. Any of you guys do Twitter? Any of you do Facebook? Everybody has Facebook, right? Me too, sure. And you know people that do Facebook and they'll type on Facebook, just woke up, sure is early, enter. And then they'll type, just had cornflakes for breakfast, boy, they sure were good, enter. And then they'll put in, oh, here I am driving to work, it sure is a lot of traffic today, enter. And then they'll say, well, here I am at work, man, I tell you, I sure got a big day today, enter. And people get this. And maybe some of them read it, but is it very interesting? It's just me. But this that Rick Bragg has written is more than just about what happened to him. It's about what he thought, what he felt, what he learned. And that's what you've got to try to do. What did you think about the things that happened to you? How did you feel about it? What have you learned that you can share with other people? Very important. Okay. There's a lesson to it, there's a moral to it, there's a point to it. You know? The point, if you read much of his work, you'll find out the point is that hard-working, honest people that usually don't get a say about what happens to them and sometimes aren't heard, they have a voice and they have a story to tell. And Rick Bragg tells the story about people like that bring his family. Very powerful. And finally, Mr. Bragg, he quotes people in the language that they speak, that they actually use when they speak. And it's not always the most pleasant thing in the world to read. I mean, think about the people you know, the language that they use. It's not always the kind of language that you would hear. But when you write about them and you put those words in their mouths, you put that language on your page, it makes it much more powerful, makes it more real. Even if it is a little bit quite crazy. Very powerful stuff. Okay, now I have an excerpt for you to read. And I'll turn the lights on for that. Same kind of stuff. It's actually 2 pages, but I think I'll give y'all just the top page. No, I think I'll give you both pages. I'll take both of those. You can just go ahead and start reading them. Very powerful stuff. Powerful stuff, huh? Powerful. Powerful. We'll take about 4 or 5 minutes to start. It's going to be about the last time he saw his father. It's hard to read. No, I thought you guys could. Y'all can read.
I like how you read.
You like how I read? Oh, stop.
It makes
Really?
me interested.
That's very kind. It's not me. It's Rick Bragg. It's all Rick Bragg. You should hear me read the newspaper, so I'm terrible. It's all Rick Bragg. It's not me. Oh, you guys want to see the image? I have extras, so happy to. Yeah. Yes. I think you've seen this already. Kind of. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. No, it's in this first one. Okay, we'll take about 4 or 5 minutes so y'all can read that. We can jettison the quiz if time's short. Yes. Well, that's really something, isn't it? It's powerful. That's powerful, isn't it? Y'all see the very last part down there? That's the part that kind of really was powerful for me. The very last paragraph where he says, I made a half-hearted try to shake. He had made a half-hearted try to shake my hand, but had a coughing fit again that lasted a minute, coughing up his life, his lungs, and after that, I didn't want to touch him. That's something, isn't it? He had a dark streak in his beard below his lip, and I wondered why, because he had never liked snuff. Now I know it was blood. He must have been coughing up blood. something? That's powerful, isn't it? That's pretty powerful stuff. I tell you, if you can write like that, you can. If you can write like this, you don't have to pump gas. You don't have to. You sure don't. And you know, the funny thing is, with a little practice, any of you guys could write this kind of stuff. Really could. Really could. You'd be amazed. Okay. Great job, guys. Now we had a look at that, and is there anything in particular you liked about it?
Grandparent.
Oh, you like that last one? Me too. I like that one. I like some of the others too, but that last paragraph is powerful.
And I like the part where he was talking about how his daddy thought he would like him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. How do you deal with that? I mean, here you have, a father, and in the whole book he sets his father up as being this bad guy. Never was at home, drank too much, never was very nice to his mother, always running around, all that kind of stuff, right? And then people say, "Ooh, you remind me of your father." How do you? That's very difficult. And of course, he's his father's son, so he's going to be like his father to some degree. And yet, that's exactly what he doesn't want to be.
I like the part of when they say if somebody was choking you and he was stick his thumb in
their eye,
or if somebody got a hit on him in baseball, he'll been hit by.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed, but you notice how he did it with the writing. And if you notice, he said, "I'd stick his thumb in his eye," just like he taught me. And if somebody got a hit off me in baseball, I'd try to throw it at their head, just like he taught me. Isn't that something? Huh? The Father teaches the Son to do these things. That's what it said. And I believe it. Okay, great job. Now, let me click this all the way up here. You're going to get a chance to write, to speak and engage with the man that lived all this, that wrote all this, and lived it. We think. We're going to do a Skype conference with him at some point. I understand it's going to be not too much longer. That'll be coming, the exact time and everything. You'll get a chance to engage with him, and you will get a chance to ask Mr. Bragg a question or two. And this is something that's really important. It is important to us. You can make a good impression here when we have this event by, first of all, we really should, as writers and as educated people, we should show our respect for somebody who has won the Pulitzer Prize. Now, the Pulitzer Prize, I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but it really is a really, really big deal. It's a pretty important thing. They don't award very many of them. They have several different categories. It's kind of like winning an Oscar. You know how that works, right? Every year they have the Oscars. They'll give somebody Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Actor in Actress in a Supporting Role, Best Movie, and there's a whole bunch of smaller categories. But the Pulitzer Prize is very much like that too. It is a real big deal. President John Kennedy. You all know President John Kennedy? He won a Pulitzer Prize. And of course many other people have won them. But this guy, Rick Bragg, he won one. Now, he did not win a Pulitzer Prize for what you're reading today. He read a Pulitzer Prize for something that he covered at the New York Times, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. But we have to understand that he's a person who, in his field, is considered very, very good, so we should likewise consider him to be very skilled. Okay, we want to show that we appreciate Mr. Bragg's effort in coming and doing this with us. I mean, he's not getting paid. He's doing this because he wants to encourage young writers like you. And so we want to be sure we show him that we appreciate that. And it would be good if we could show that we are interested in his work. That we're interested as writers in people who can write this kind of memoir. And so we'll try to do that. There's many different ways we can do that. How to approach it. Okay. Think about your question in advance. Think about what you might want to ask somebody like Rick Bragg. Give it some thought. Hey, there's some things that you should not ask about. Don't ask him a question that's, unanswerable. And the one that you usually hear, the unanswerable question is, where do you get your ideas? As a writer, where do you get your ideas? Well, where do you get your ideas as a writer?
From my brain.
I don't know. Sometimes I dream stuff, and it comes to me in a dream. Now, if you're writing a memoir, you're going to be reflecting on your past, and that's where you're going to be getting your ideas. The stuff that's happened to you in your past that you think is interesting or funny or sad or worth writing about. If you're writing a piece of fiction or a poem or whatever, I don't know where the ideas come from. They come from wherever they come from. Okay, We should also not ask him about what happened at the New York Times. He got in trouble at the New York Times. He got in trouble. Here's what happened. In the newspaper industry, if you are a newspaper reporter, you can't be everywhere, right? Of course not. So you make friends with people in various communities, and those people tell you what's going on in those communities. And sometimes you pay them a little bit of money for that service. They're called stringers. And what these stringers will do sometimes is they'll write what amounts to like a little newspaper article and give it to you, and then you take that information and write your book or write your article or whatever, right? What happened, Rick Bragg, he was accused of using some material from one of those stringers and not giving the stringer full credit for it. I don't know if he really did it or not. Who knows, right? But there was some controversy about whether or not he had... Well, you hate to use the P word. You know what the P word is in writing? It's the word that we have for when you take somebody else's stuff and you scratch their name out, you put your name in. What's it called? Ooh, the P word. Ooh, the P word. The P word. I tell you, once you get some of that P word on you, and people think you plagiarize stuff, it's very hard to get a job. It's very hard to get taken seriously. All writers are tempted by plagiarism, aren't you? Sure, wouldn't it be easy just to go down and get an encyclopedia and copy out the article and turn it in? Of course it would! Hey, we all struggle with it. But you got to keep up the good fight. You do your work, turn it in, you get your grade. That's a great deal. Okay, but so there were some questions. We're not investigators. That was a long time ago. That's not the kind of thing we should be asking him about. Okay, and finally, don't ask about his private life. Are you married? How many kids you got? Where do you live? Can I come over? Things like that. Don't ask about that. I know that you wouldn't do that, of course, but some people would. Some good question possibilities. Of course, you'll have better questions than I will. But some good possibilities of questions, things I'd like to ask him is things like, hey, how did you get started in writing? I mean, did you start in school, or did you have somebody you knew that was a writer, or, how'd you get started? How can I write good stories about my family the same way you've written good stories about yours? That might be an interesting, question to ask. And what kind of challenges does having a best-selling book bring with it? You have a best-selling book, sure, you're going to have money and a little bit of fame, but what comes with it that maybe you didn't know about? What are the challenges? I mean, can you still go to McDonald's and get a hamburger without people bothering you? Hey, Mr. Bragg, can I have your autograph? That might be an interesting question. You'll have better questions than that. You just give it some thought. Okay. Best ways to prepare. I'll just click all this up here. The best way to prepare, probably the best way to prepare for dealing with this, with Mr. Bragg, is to read some of his material. You've heard some today, you've read some today, and that's a step in the right direction. You should think of Mr. Bragg as being a colleague. He's not a rock star. He's a writer, you're a writer. Now he's a little bit farther along than you, sure. But you should think of him as being somebody who does the same kinds of things that you do professionally. Right. Okay. And finally, of course, be polite, respectful, and literate. I know I don't have to tell you guys this. Be sure you thank Mr. Bragg for participating. If you're talking to him and it seems natural. Thanks very much, Mr. Bragg. I'm going to say that. And finally, he probably would appreciate it if you identified yourself first and last name. That's what I would usually do. I might say, Mr. Bragg, I'm Wayne Bartlett from Clanton, Alabama, 8th grade teacher. And I really appreciate you doing this with us today. Now, my question is, how did you get started in writing? I might be interested in asking that. Okay. Now I've got a quiz for you. You want to take a quiz?
No.
What?
No?
What do you mean? Of course you do. I'll click one of the lights on. I want to do this for you. It's only 10 questions, multiple choice, real easy. I want to do this with you all so you can kind of see what my poor 8th graders have to put up with every day of their lives. Oh my gosh. Every day they come to school, I usually give them a little quiz. And it just covers whatever we talked about that day. Yeah, they love it. They love it. And I think you'll love it once, I think you'll love it once you see how I do this. I think you'll be very impressed. Maybe you won't be. Maybe you'll be glad you don't live in Clanton. Thank you. Alrighty. The quiz number is 45309. 45309. 10 questions, multiple choice. Use the answer sheet there. And work by yourself, of course. I have to tell my 8th grade.
Don't be mad at it.
Okay, y'all ready? It'll all be up here. It's on the timing bar. You ready?
Oh,
I swear to God.
why are you lying?
Hey, guys.
This is awesome.
15 seconds. 15 seconds. An account of an author's personal experiences defines a mystery, a tale, an autobiography, or a memoir.
Deep.
Yeah, but can you trust him to know the right answer?
Man.
You answer. You mark MD. Everybody else will mark in what they think.
Be quiet.
Y'all good?
No, hey.
Quickly.
It's deep.
Be quiet. I don't say it out loud.
Which of the following is true about memoirs? Memoirs are a part of the historical record. See how it's on a timing bar and it's timing? When it gets to 25, it'll click to the next one.
Okay,
Pretty groovy,
see.
huh?
Me either.
Just do the best you can. Is that enough time for y'all?
No.
Good. From where does the word memoir come? From the Greek word memoria, which means history. From the Latin word memoria, which means memory. From the French word mediate, which means what I remember. Or from the Russian word pomnish, which means memory. That's a very interesting question. A couple more seconds. Y'all good?
Yeah.
Yay! How long did Mr. Bragg say he put off writing about his early experience? Remember, that was in the excerpt I read. Do you remember? Very tricky, very tricky. Y'all remember?
No.
Sure you do.
Of course. No, you don't.
Good?
Miss Fruit,
Yes, ma'am.
could you send Xavier to check out?
Sure.
Why we on number 5?
Yeah.
See it.
Oh.
With?
Oh.
I think that was in your excerpt that you read, wasn't it? What his father calls him that last time he goes to see him?
It's all.
You remember that?
Oh.
Mutton head, cotton top, buddy boy, or sport.
Bye, Xavier.
Bye.
Adios, Xavier.
Y'all good? Brilliant. What medical problem does Mr. Bragg's father show? Can't get out of his chair? Forgets where he puts things? I do that a lot. Shakes all the time? Or he coughs a lot? Good? Y'all good?
Yes.
What writing award did Mr. Bragg win? Y'all know this.
Wow.
Well, I do an easy one so y'all have a break sometime. Nobel Prize, Fields Medal, Pulitzer Prize, or the Stanley Cup?
The Stanley Cup. Stanley Cup.
The Stanley.
Not the Fields Medal. Yep, I knew it was the Stanley Cup.
The Stanley Cup. Oh man, that's Stanley Cup. I tell you.
What the
That is very
Stanley
exciting.
Cup?
It's a award they have in hockey. It's a big cup. They hold it over their heads when they win.
Who won it?
They kiss it sometimes.
No, man.
That's how excited they are. They kiss it. Why is the event with Mr. Bragg important to us? Because he's an accomplished writer. Because we can ask him questions. Because we can make a good impression. Or all of the above. There's been studies that have been done on multiple choice questions. And did you know that more than 65% of the time, if all of the above is on the question, all the above is the answer? Not always. Not always. But sometimes. Y'all good? All right. Which of the following, oh, this is funny, y'all like this. Which of the following is a good question for Mr. Brad? Can you tell me your home phone number?
Yeah.
I heard you didn't cite material you should have in the New York Times. Is that true?
Yeah.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Yes. That's a good one.
Or, what do you find most challenging about writing?
Oh,
man.
yes.
No, it's the one about the New York Times.
Hey, inquiring minds want to know. Hey, I feel your pain.
I would like to see his face.
All right. And finally, what is the best way to prepare for the conversation with Mr. Brad? Read his work. Look at photos of him and his family. Listen to an interview about him on the radio. Or write your own memoir about your job.
What happened about E? All of the above.
Oh, well, they don't always all have an all of the above.
Sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they do. See, this one, it has to be only one answer. You know why it says what is the best? There'll only be one that's the best, right? And of course, it's a matter of opinion, but okay. Nice job. That's Banjo when he was a little puppy boy. Yes, sir. Now, that says pass your answer sheets backwards, but don't do that, actually. What I'll do is I have my little secret, cool grading template. Now, check this out. This is the bomb right here. You take the student's answer sheet. You take the template. You hold the one over the other. And I can very quickly and easily, bam, bam, mark the ones that are wrong. Isn't that groovy? You want to give it a try?
I want to give it a
Yes,
try.
you'll be honest. Okay.
I want to give it a try.
All right, look at that. See, it goes just like that.
I want
That, you got to admit, that is pretty cool. That is innovation in education right there. Isn't that amazing? See, I put my little thing like that, number 1 through number 1. Whoa, look at that. That is pretty incredible, isn't it? Cha-ching! How about that? Want to give it a try? Sure, go ahead. That is innovation. Yes, of course. That is innovation in education. Great job, guys. It's a real pleasure being here today. We had a lot of fun. And also, yay for you, yay for you, yay for you. Thank you. Looking good?
Thank you very much.
Oh, yes, of course, man. My pleasure. See, I'll put the punch out 1 and 10 so I can line it up right. 1 and 10. Check it out. That's pretty wild, huh?
Can you check the line?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So I got 8.
Usually my guys, I have a tip jar in my room. Sometimes they don't give me a tip.
Sometimes it would be me.
I don't, but I think it's a great idea. See how I put the 1 under the 1, the 10 under the 10? That is pretty cool, huh?
Do you mind?
Nice seeing y'all today. I will. Yes, ma'am. Y'all got someplace you gotta go?
Well, you can't leave until 2:50.
Oh, fantastic. Bye, guys. Thank y'all. See how I take see it's got number 1 and number 10 punched out? I put number 1 over number 1, number 10 over number 10.
Okay.
And then I can
Help
look
me out
through.
here. Just stick with me for a minute. Just this class.
Hey, not bad.
Quick question, Mr. Bart.
Yes, ma'am.
With that, do you have to buy one for every single one?
Yeah, I do. I do. But it saves me so much time and energy in the long run. I'm happy to do it. Nice job. Very impressive. Very impressive. Thanks a lot, guys. It's a real pleasure being here. Always a pleasure. Did you? Oh, you got it? Okay. Yes. Oh, I'm all done with it. If you want to.
Yeah, I was planning on stealing it from you.
Sure.
That's
Thank you, Ms. Scrooge. Very kind of you. Thank you. Put it a little longer than I had planned.
Do you have any questions?
Questions, comments, suggestions, remarks, moments, growth? Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to Japan one day?
Am I going to what?
Take Japan one day?
I don't know. Maybe. You know, I'm trying to get a
Well, you
PhD
can
in
get our
Africa.
substitute teacher when Miss
That's
Cruz
very
out.
sweet of you. I'm not qualified as a sub in the Lee County
But
system.
you're qualified as a
But I am in the state. I've got a Class A certificate. So it would be a very simple process. But see, I live in Clanton. You have any idea how far it is from Clanton to here? About
3
an
hours.
hour and 20-minute drive. So it's a long
Did you
way.
just say 3 hours?
Yes,
It's 3 hours there and back. Pretty much.
No, it's an hour and 20. No,
Miss
it's
Crew,
2
are you
hours
at
and 40
recording
minutes.
this?
240. Oh, yes, it is. Almost.
Mr. Bartlett is.
Pretty smart.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you get your personality from? Because you say yours in like, well,
I don't know. I've always had it. Always had just this same one. Yeah, I was in the military. I was in the Air Force. I retired from the Air Force in 2005 after 25 years. And I told my friends that I was going to go into education as my second career. You know what they told me? They said, you crazy.
I know, right?
They said, you crazy. Yes, ma'am.
Do you think we're somehow distant relatives?
You and me? We might be. What's your last name?
I think we're related.
I think we might be. You're my uncle's cousin on the third side. His auntie got married and then divorced and then married that man. And that man was like, yeah, that's what it was. It was my auntie. Yeah.